Wife stole $118,000 on trip. My just-in-case plan made ruined her life and I found freedom. My name is Leonard Gabriel, 54 years old and glued to my phone in the kitchen of our Des Moines condo, at 11:42 at night on a Thursday. My wife, Julia, was supposed to be on day 4 of a ladies' trip to Palm Springs. The message hit my phone, and it had a picture attached. A screenshot of a bank transfer. $118,000 had zipped right out of our shared savings account and into her own private account. I put my phone down and took the last gulp of my coffee. 15 whole years of marriage blew up in just a couple of lines in that picture. For months, there had been red flags. Weekend getaways that kept getting longer. New fancy clothes I never saw her wear when I was around. Phone chats that shut right down when I walked in. I saw it all, plain as day. I'm a forensic accountant. Figuring out what doesn't add up, that's my job. But I kept my mouth shut. Maybe I messed up right there. Or maybe I messed up right when I married someone who thought my career was just spreadsheets and dull numbers. I flipped open my laptop and had a look at one of my email accounts. The one Julia didn't have a clue about. 3 alerts from my bank security system. Someone had tried to switch the passwords on accounts Julia had no idea even existed. She was really covering her bases. Had to give her props for that, in a twisted way. I picked up my phone and punched in 2 words back to her. Good luck. Then I rang up my brother, Vincent. Remember that just-in-case plan we discussed 5 years back? I said when he answered. The time was now. You for real? He asked. Yes. I replied. She just played her hand. I hung up and looked over at the wedding picture on the wall. That photo was the only one in the whole place that still showed both of us. Should have seen that one coming. Too, I guess. I met Julia Bowman at an alumni get-together for the University of Iowa. I was 38, fresh off a quick divorce from my first marriage, and all in on building up my forensic accounting business. Julia was 34, full of life and really driven, but she didn't care a lick about what I did for work. I don't gotta get all the nitty-gritty, she'd say whenever I tried to talk about a case. Just make sure you pull in enough so we can live comfy. We tied the knot after dating for about a year. I helped her get her yoga studio off the ground, and paid for the whole thing out of my own savings. When she wanted a bigger pad in a fancier part of town, I was all for it. When she wanted fancy cars and pricey trips, I just nodded and put my name on the checks. My old man gave me a heads up once. We were working on his deck, and he paused, hammer in his grip. Son, I notice your wife spends a pretty penny of your money, he said real slow like. Just make sure she actually appreciates what you gotta do to make that cash. I blew him off. But what he said stayed with me. 6 whole years into our marriage, I started quietly shifting my money around. Nothing shady. Just making sure I was covered. I created 2 LLCs. Set up some trusts. Put money into crypto. And kept accounts overseas for clients from other countries. Julia only knew about our main checking and savings accounts. Not a single other thing. I watched as she got more and more into those fitness influencer groups. Her Instagram followers got up into the thousands. She started taking trips with her wellness crowd. At first, just weekends, then whole weeks at a time. You wouldn't dig it, she'd say. It's all yoga chatter and those juice detox things. Last Christmas, my birthday slipped her mind. When I brought it up the next day, she bought me a pricey watch and said, I've just been swamped with the studio getting bigger. I took the watch. But that night, I got all the final papers done for my backup plan. All the clues were right in front of me. I just didn't want to see the whole messy truth. The morning after her message hit, I got up early and brewed some coffee. Just like any other day. Old habits die hard. Even when your world has gone totally sideways. I signed into my main money management system. Built something special for my business. But I'd set it up for my own stuff too. With just a few clicks, I fired up that backup plan Vincent and I had figured out years back. First off, I locked down all our shared accounts and credit cards. Then, I put out a fraud alert on that $118,000 transfer. Using my connections at the bank to speed things up. I sent proof of her shady money moves to my lawyer and told him to get the divorce papers filed right away. Then I phoned my mom. Julia's bailed on me. I just said it plainly. She grabbed the cash and cleared out my stuff while she was supposed to be on her trip. My mother was silent for a bit. I'm sorry, Leonard, she finally said, but honestly, I'm not shocked. So, what's your next move? Exactly what I've been getting ready for years now, I replied. Keep what's mine safe and sound. An hour later, My phone buzzed with Julia's name. I ignored it. She kept calling, like 10 more times. Then a message popped up. What the heck did you do? My money's gone and my cards ain't working. I didn't text her back. Instead, I drove over to the storage place she'd mentioned in her first message. Using the code she sent, I grabbed 2 boxes of my clothes and my laptop. The rest of my belongings, family photos, books, stuff from my dad were gone. Just gone. That's when something inside me just locked up. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about 15 years of my life thrown away like they meant nothing. It was about someone thinking they could wipe me right out of my own life. I pulled into a coffee shop and flipped open my laptop. Using special financial databases only folks like me could get into, I dug up everything I could on Trey Harmon, the gym guru Julia had been showing off on her social media for months. The someone better she'd talked about. What I found confirmed all my gut feelings. Trey's gym business was up to his eyeballs in debt. 3 business credit cards, totally maxed out, a rental he clearly couldn't pay for, and Julia had already put her name on a car loan with him just 2 months before. I closed my laptop and drove to a hotel. For the first time in years, I knew exactly what had to happen. I wasn't mad anymore. I was zoned in. Monday morning, I strolled into my office like it was any other Monday. My assistant, Valerie, looked up. Her eyes wide. Leonard, I thought you'd be taking some days off. Julia called here 3 times already. Did she? I said it. But it wasn't really a question. She sounded really mad. Valerie said there was a mix-up with your accounts and needed to reach you right away. I nodded. If she calls again, tell her to contact my attorney. By noon, Julia had gone from calling me to showing up herself. The receptionist rang my office intercom. Your wife is here. She's not taking no for an answer. I sighed and walked to the lobby. Julia stood there. Fancy sunglasses perched on her head. Yoga gear all matched up, top to bottom. She smiled when she saw me. That same old smile she pulled out for 15 years when she was trying to get some. Leonard, there's been a big mix-up with the bank, she said. Loud enough so everyone could hear her. All our money accounts are locked up. Not a mix-up, I said quietly. You transferred money without permission. The bank called it fraud. Her smile dropped a bit. It was our shared account. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife who cleaned out our savings while telling me you'd moved out and found someone new. That's straight-up financial foul play. Her voice lowered to a snarl. You cannot do this to me. I've already put money down on a new spot. I've promised things to Trey Harmon. Yes. I know all about those promises. Her face turned pale. You're investigating me? No. Just protecting myself from fraud. I'll fight this. She shot back. I deserve half of everything. I met her gaze without blinking. Half of what's in those accounts? Sure. But you seem to think that's the whole ballgame. She blinked, confused. What are you talking about? You'll see when the legal stuff starts, I said. Then turned and walked back to my office. That afternoon, I got an email from Julia's new lawyer, sending an email, wanting to see all my money papers right away. It also said they'd tell everyone about shady stuff in my accounting business if I didn't play along. It was a rookie move, an empty threat. I forwarded it to my attorney with one line. Do what we talked about. By evening, Julia had gotten our mutual friends buzzing, all on her side. My phone blew up with messages asking why I was being such a jerk and so bossy. Nobody asked where she'd been all week, or who she'd been hanging with. Nobody asked about the cash she'd taken. I didn't even bother to reply. Instead, I headed to the gym, not Julia's yoga place or Trey's flashy new fitness spot, but the little community center I'd been going to for years. I lifted weights until my arms felt like jelly, then drove back to my hotel room. The net was tightening. But she was the one caught. Not me. 3 days later, my attorney called. We found something interesting, she said. Julia's been sneaking money out of your joint account for over a year. Small amounts at first. Then bigger ones. Where to? I asked, even though I already had a pretty good idea. Lots of accounts. Some went to her personal savings. But most went to a business called Harmon Fitness, registered to Trey Harmon. Almost $80,000 total. And she used our shared money for it? Yes. Which means we can add messing with your finances to the divorce papers. I thanked her and hung up. I wasn't shocked, but hearing it confirmed it still felt like a kick in the stomach. Julia hadn't just left me for someone else. She'd been planning it for more than a year, using my money to fund her getaway and her new boyfriend's business. That night, I got a text from a number I didn't know. You need to back off. Julia deserves better than you. Don't make this mess any nastier than it needs to be. Trey Harmon. Jumping in himself. Interesting. I drove to my brother's house the next morning. Vincent worked in digital security, which was a perfect match for my money smarts. We'd worked together on other cases before, but this one felt different. I need everything you can find on Harmon Fitness LLC. I told him. Bank records, loans, credit application, the whole 9 yards. Vincent raised an eyebrow. Just by the book, right? Of course. We're just putting pieces together faster than most folks could. 3 hours later, we had our answer. Trey Harmon wasn't just in debt, he was deep in the red. His social media showed a picture of success, but his business was failing hard. The new equipment, the expansion, the big events all paid for with risky loans and, more recently, Julia's investments. But there was something else. Something Julia couldn't have known. Look at this, Vincent said, pointing at his screen. Harmon applied for a small business loan 4 months ago. Used the gym equipment as collateral. That's normal, I said. Yeah. But look who co-signed. I leaned in closer. The paper showed Julia's signature on a $175,000 loan for equipment. She co-signed before she left you, Vincent said quietly. But here's the wild part. The loan says both her and her husband were on the hook. They used your married status to get better terms. I just stared at the screen. She put my money on the line for his loan without me knowing. Exactly. And there's more. 3 credit cards. A car lease. And the rent for the new commercial space. All co-signed by Julia. All used our shared money as a guarantee. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, kids were playing in the yard next door, and didn't have a clue about the grown-up messes of the world. She has no idea what she's done, I finally said. And neither does he. The next morning, I met with my attorney and told her everything we'd dug up. I want to move fast, I told her. Before they figure out what's happening. She looked over the papers and nodded. We'll file for emergency asset protection today. The loan fraud alone is enough to lock down everything until the divorce is final. That afternoon, I drove to Harmon Fitness. The gym was all fancy and new, with feel-good sayings painted on the walls and Trey's face plastered all over the entrance. Inside, young folks in pricey gym clothes were taking selfies between not really trying hard sets. Trey spotted me right away. He was taller in person, with that fake tan and super white teeth, looking exactly like someone whose whole job was about how he looked. He walked over, hand out, with a smile that was just right, almost fake. You must be Leonard, he said. Julia's mentioned you. I'm sure she has, I said, not taking his hand. We need to talk, just us. His smile kind of fizzled out, but he led me to his office. It had glass walls, so everyone could see in, but you couldn't hear a thing. What can I do for you? He asked, shutting the door. I put a folder down on his desk. These are all the money papers that tie you to Julia. Loans, credit cards, leases, all of them Julia signed for, using our shared stuff as collateral. He picked up the folder carefully. I don't get it. It's simple. Julia used our marriage to make your business loans happen. Now we're getting divorced. And those promises she made aren't worth squatting. The color just drained from his face as he flipped through the pages. These are all real business deals between Julia and me. Maybe. But the banks approved them because of our money and how much we made together. Money she can't touch anymore. He closed the folder. What do you want? Nothing from you. I just figured you should know what's coming. The banks will be wanting their money back very soon. Julia said you were loaded, he said. His voice getting harder. That money's no big deal for you. Money's never been the issue, I replied. Trust was. I stood up to leave, but stopped at the door. One more thing. When Julia moved out, she took some things that mean a lot to me. Family photos. My father's watch, stuff you can't buy back. He just stared at me for a long moment. I'll see what I can do. I nodded and left. The next day, a delivery guy dropped off a box at my hotel. Inside were the photos that were gone, my father's watch, and other stuff that was mine. No message. Nothing. That same afternoon, my lawyer told me the emergency asset protection had been granted. My money was locked down tight, just like we wanted. All our joint stuff would stay frozen until the divorce was totally done. I checked my money system and saw the messages. Julia had tried to get into our frozen account 17 times in one day. She'd also tried to get new credit using our house as a guarantee. No go. My phone buzzed with her name again. This time. I answered. What have you done? She shouted, her voice all wobbly. The bank said Trey had to pay back all his loans. Right now. They're taking his gym stuff tomorrow. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. This is mean-spirited. Leonard. You're ruining his life just to get even with me. I'm not doing anything to him. I'm just keeping myself safe from being ripped off. You used our marriage to back his loans without me knowing or saying okay. That's against the law. We can fix this, she said, her voice getting soft real quick. Come home. We'll talk. 15 years of marriage. And she still thought I could be played like a fiddle that easy. There's nothing to fix, I replied. The divorce is going ahead. The money scam investigation will keep going. And Trey's gonna get a costly lesson about checking things out first. I ended the call and blocked her number. That night, I slept better than I had in months. 3 weeks later, I sat in a meeting room as Julia and her lawyer showed up for our meeting the judge told us to have. She looked tired. Her fancy clothes and perfect makeup couldn't hide how worn out she looked. Her lawyer spoke first. My client is willing to be reasonable about splitting up the money and stuff, even with how rough things have been from your end. My attorney smiled nicely. That's good to hear because there's been a new thing that's happened. She pushed a paper across the table. The bank has finished looking into the money scam. They found out Julia faked Leonard's name on a bunch of loan papers, using our shared money as a guarantee without him knowing. Julia's lawyer read it fast, her face losing all its color. We'll need time to look this over. Of course, my attorney said. But you should know that the bank has already sent the whole thing to the prosecutor. This meeting is just a polite heads up before they press criminal charges. Julia stared at me, eyes wide. Criminal charges, Leonard? You can't be serious. I looked her right in the eye, didn't flinch. I didn't file the charges, the bank did. That's what happens when you pull a loan scam. Her attorney whispered something in her ear. She shook her head hard, like she really meant it. If Mrs. Bowman is willing to sign the deal we put on the table today, my attorney continued, Leonard is prepared to give a statement to the bank that could make the criminal part less bad. He won't press charges for the stealing of my personal stuff or taking money from our shared account without permission. I watched as Julia's perfect little world fell apart. She'd thought I'd be mad, jealous, maybe even groveling. She hadn't seen this coming. The settlement is fair, even a bit much, I said quietly. You keep your yoga studio, which always made good money. You keep your car and personal belongings. You don't get a dime in support from me. And you gotta pay back the debts you ran up using my name. And Trey? She asked. Her voice so soft I could barely hear her. Mr. Harmon's money troubles are his own mess, my attorney replied. But without your man's money holding up those loans, I understand the bank has already started taking back his stuff. Julia signed the papers without another word. As we left the meeting room, she grabbed my arm. I never thought you'd come at me like this, she said. You always just rolled with the punches. That was my choice, I replied. Just like this was your choice. I walked away without looking back. A month later, I packed up from the hotel and moved into a smaller house close to downtown Des Moines. It wasn't anything flashy. Just an old craftsman-style house that was well built but needed some TLC. The kind of project that would give me something to do with my hands and keep my mind busy at night. Through our old friends, I heard Julia had packed up and moved to Colorado for a fresh start. Her social media posts showed mountains and all those new beginnings kind of quotes. Trey's gym got bought out by a big company, and he'd moved down to Miami to grow his brand. Neither of them ever talked about what went down. Folks don't usually broadcast their screw-ups. My brother Vincent came over one Saturday to give me a hand putting in new kitchen cabinets. Heard from Julia at all? He asked, while we were figuring out where the hinges went. No, I said. And I don't expect to. You know, you could have cleaned her out for every dime, he said. Those fraud charges would have made sure of it. I just shrugged. What's the sense in that? She's not my problem anymore. We worked in a comfortable quiet for a bit. The steady rhythm of measuring, cutting, and putting things up made me feel calm. I'm thinking of taking a break, I said after a bit. Might head up to Minnesota. Do some fishing at the cabin. Dad would have liked that, Vincent replied. You haven't been up there since he died. That night, after Vincent took off, I sat on my back porch with a glass of bourbon. The neighborhood was peaceful. Just the odd dog, bark or kid laughing breaking the quiet. It was different from that fancy neighborhood Julia had to have felt more genuine somehow. I thought about the last 15 years. How I let someone else tell me who I was, what I was worth. How I saw the writing on the wall but just looked away. How, when the shoe finally dropped, I was ready. Because deep down, I'd always known this day would come. I didn't feel like I'd won. I didn't feel like I was proven right. I just felt free. The next morning, I called my office and told them I was taking 2 weeks off. Then I packed up my truck, locked the house, and drove north. No plan. No expectations. Just the wide open road. And for the first time in ages, no hidden list of grudges to settle. Lesson. We all have a choice in how we handle betrayal and hardship. For years, I kept my guard up, silently preparing for the possibility that Julia might pull something like this. When the time came, I wasn't filled with anger or a desire for revenge. Instead, I focused on protecting myself and maintaining my dignity. Sometimes, the best thing you can do in a toxic relationship is to walk away, and trust that freedom will come when you least expect it. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to protect yourself from someone close to you? How did you deal with it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story and how you think you might have reacted in a similar situation.